Hey guys, King of Triumphs here to be your judge, your jury, and your analyst, and today I bring you my top 5 teams for the Ultra Premier Classic. So, because PV Poke's training sim isn't out, I didn't have a lot of... That's how I'll usually run a few battles with every team just to like test them out, but these teams are really solid, and unfortunately it's not updated, so yeah. But these teams are still really solid. A lot of the old teams that from before that were top ranked are still really dang good in this cup, even with the new moveset changes. I'll highlight a few things here that might be really interesting, including one anti-meta pick that I'll mention in one of these teams. But these teams are really solid. Walrein Trev core is still really strong. Gallade is arguably one of still the strongest, most popular safe switch, and will do work still in this cup. And Ultra Premier Classic is definitely a good breather if you don't like Open Ultra League. And it's definitely a lot more stable than Ultra League just because of all the XLs running around in Open Ultra, etc. But before we get started, it's going to be my therapist mental health tip of the day, and it's actually going to be really quick. So this one's going to be, make sure y'all drink water. No, seriously, like I say it all the time and I use it as a joke, but water is actually really important. So water, if you're dehydrated, then you can actually have symptoms of anxiety and depression just because of your body's literally trying to survive. And on Psychology Today, there's actually this article about decision making. I'll leave it over there, but yes, when we're busy with work, etc., very often we don't think about water, but water is actually very important. And it actually helps you make better decisions. Again, you can watch this article, but yeah, drinking water is very important. Make sure y'all stay hydrated, and it's great for your day. I always have this giant thermoflask, or if you see me stream, I have my giant jug of water that I always have in there. So yes, make sure y'all drink water. Without further ado, these are my top 5 teams. I'm not going to put the graphic up. I was going to put the graphics of the Pokemon up here, but just make sure you take a look at the bars as usual. But in the next one, I'll be doing a little bit of improvements to this one. I just didn't have the time to go and put the graphics together because putting 15 graphics on one takes a while. And after I'm done going to my school and doing therapy, I don't have a lot of time. So yes, so I'll make sure I make that improvement in the future. But without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so our first team is Nidoqueen, Trevenant, and Obstagoon. You lose the lead with Nidoqueen, you send out Trevenant, and Obstagoon closes out. Yes, both of your top 2 are weak to Walrein. However, if you switch Trev to Walrein, it's not a bad matchup just because of the fact you wouldn't CMP. And then you can farm down their Walrein and have energy loaded in the back. If you get a Gallade lead, this is what makes it even better because you can send in Trevenant and Obstagoon can hopefully beat the unholy crap out of poor Gallade. Gallade's confusions are resisted and your Night Slashes will do neutral damage. So unless you want to run Hyper Beam, one Hyper Beam will yeet a Gallade from the face of the earth. However, you don't want to eat close combat, or hopefully you can come out with energy. This team was actually a top team in the last time the top teams were around. And if you look at the overall meta, it does pretty dang well. Your biggest weaknesses, of course, I already mentioned Gallade, so I'm going to tell you how to play out of that. And if you do win the lead, Nidoqueen can go ahead and rev up with, well, not rev up, but debuff down with poison fangs. With your only glaring weakness really being Gliscor. You might see Gliscor around, you might not, but either way, even if you do see it, Trevenant, well, actually, if you do see a Gliscor, it kind of sucks. It sucks a lot. But hopefully you can come out with a win condition. Obstagoon will always give you a win condition. You lose the lead again, you safe switch into Trevenant, and then hopefully if you bait out the Walrein, or if you get that Trevenant weakness, hopefully Nidoqueen and Obstagoon can close out. Was the top team from before, and not many combinations changed. Dragonite with Superpower does lose against Nidoqueen just because Superpower doesn't hit for super effective damage, and Poison Jabs hurt a lot. Add that with a Poison Fang debuff, and it dies really, really fast. So if you're going to try out Dragonites with Superpower in this new Ultra Premier Cup meta, just be very careful of Nidoqueens. Alright, next up we got Dragonite, Walrein, and Sirfetch'd. I'm trying to give you a bunch of teams with like different save switches, so if you find one that doesn't work, or there's one really overpowered core that's still freaking overpowered and I don't know why, even though Walrein was nerfed. But as you see, Walrein is still really freaking good for this cup. You lose the lead with Dragonite, you switch into Walrein. You want to, if you get Walrein, you want to draw your own Walrein into them, and Sirfetch'd can go ahead and go farm down. brrrr threatens really hard. You can run Night Slash if you want to, especially if you get the boost. But I just like brrrr because, you know, who doesn't like Here Comes the Boom? I like, you know, yeah, it's a great song. But as you see, does really great against the overall meta. Walrein with superpower is really good, except for Charmers. So this team really hates to see Sylveon. So if you start seeing Sylveons to hell, I don't recommend playing Dragonite leads. Sylveon's the prominent charmer in this cup. Sylveon should get scared away because of all the Nidoqueens as well as the Crobats. So Nidoqueen and Crobat really love to see they really love to see Sylveon. But as long as you don't see a Sylveon, this team can do very, very well. Other than that, there's no real way to play as Sylveon. Once you lose Walrein, you better hope that they eat Sirfetch'd's brrrr. Other than that, I wanted to create a Dragonite team, so here you go. Still, Sylveon still gets scared away, like I mentioned, by Crobats, Gengars, as well as Nidoqueens. So, depending on how the meta shakes out, this is still a great team outside of seeing Sylveon. So, if you start seeing Sylveons, don't run this team. But Dragonite in general is still really powerful lead. It's one of the top 10 leads. If you don't like Sirfetch'd, you can switch it out with something else. But overall, this team has amazing coverage outside of that one glaring weakness, which is Charmers. So yes, use this at your own risk. But it is a really solid team overall, as long as you don't see one particular Mon. Or two particular Mons, actually. Togekiss and Sylveon. Alright, next up we have two variations of the most powerful freaking core, and even though Walrein got nerfed, it's still really freaking good in this cup. Walrein Trevenant Excavalier is the first one. This is actually the #1 team from Ultra Premier Cup from before, and it's still poised to be one of the most annoying things since it's going to be super annoying still. And the Walrein Trev core is still really freaking good. If you see Obstagoons, you could still beat Obstagoons with said team because you can pressure it with Powder Snows or Icicle Spears. So if you see Obstagoon, you sack Walrein in lead, send in Excavalier and make poor Obstagoon cry. With Energy lead, Excavalier and Trevenant can hopefully close out unless you just get straight up RPS. But statistically overall, this was the #1 team. So #1 overall, as you see here, still does cake. Even with the new moveset updates, it still has the same exact stats as it was before when I analyzed it. Your biggest problem is going to be Sneasler. Sneasler isn't even a bad pick, to be honest with you, because Sneasler has to close combat you. It doesn't have a choice. It has to close combat the Walrein, and Sneasler, even though it goes against Trevenant, Sneasler hates Trevenant. So just because Trevenant is going, both of them are squishy, but Sneasler, it's not going to carry airlays basically. So, and Exeter does neutral damage. If you take a look against Trevenant, you only win the 2-shield convincingly, and even then, it's only a 3-turn difference. So you could sack your Walrein. I mean, you could sack your Trevenant and farm down comfortably with Walrein, etc. So just be very careful. But overall, still really solid. And you're probably going to see a lot of Obstagoons around, but this was still the #1 team, even with Obstagoons running around. So hopefully we will see. And if you don't like this variation, there's another one, but this still was statistically the #1 team. So it's still really, I practiced with it, ran sim with it, and looked up a few things, and it's still really freaking good. Especially if you see the new Dragonites. If everyone wants to try out Dragonite with superpower, Walrein is still good. Just be very careful. Alright, next up we have the Walrein Trev core. Trev's in the lead. Gallade is going to be your safe switch this time around. Gallade is really solid and arguably everybody's favorite safe switch since Ultra Premier Classic, or Ultra Premier Cup, for those who remember back in the day, first came out. Overall, this team is really freaking good. Trevenant will pressure shield. Gallade, of course, is able to take shields, or you can hopefully close combat a poor Obstagoon to the face, off the face of the entire Pokemon universe with just one shot. And overall, nothing really beats, nothing overall will, well, that's actually like super meta, will really threaten this team. Glowseopod with Shadow Claw, I don't know if people will be using it, to be honest with you. It's actually kind of scary just because Glowseopod in this cup, as if you look at it, Glowseopod beats both Gallade with Shadow Claw, and it also beats Trev. So it's going to burn X-Scissor and Aerial Ace, but the reason why I don't feature Glowseopod is just because Glowseopod, you don't see a lot. But as you see here, yes, it does give Trev a problem. And Gallade, what sucks about this is that it has to hit you with Aerial Ace. So even if it hits you with an Aerial Ace, you can farm down Glowseopod and then close it out. So Glowseopod does do very well against, like I mentioned, against Trevenant and Gallade. So look out for Glowseopods if someone finds it out. I might try something out, but yes, Glowseopod doesn't do bad against pretty much his entire team. It can, but like I mentioned, what sucks about Glowseopod is even though it does beat these three, like you see here, even though it does beat this team, you can farm it. So depending on what they have in the back, your opponent better pray that they don't have anything in the back that's weak to both Gallade or Trev. Or what you can do is have Gallade with energy, or farm it down. Gallade with energy is dangerous, or Trev with energy is also very dangerous. So I also don't foresee too many Glowseopods running around because not a lot of people have an Ultra League Glowseopod. So even though it's been out a lot, unless you've been grinding like crazy, it does take 400 candy to power this thing up. So yes, but it's a very interesting anti-meta pick. But this team is still really solid. Like I mentioned, it's with the Walrein Trev core is still really powerful despite all the combinations and all the sims I ran and analysis for Ultra Premier Classic. And last but not least, we have budget. So ironically, this team is actually really freaking good. A lot of people have made Legend with Charizard, Swampert, Venusaur. Swampert, your safe switch here, or you'll sack Charizard in the lead. This team, even despite with the Walrein Trev core being out, this team's actually still really freaking good for some odd reason. Overall, it's if you're struggling for Stardust, all three of these with their legacy moves are still incredibly powerful. Trevenant does give you a problem. If you don't like it, you can have Ember or Fire Spin, or preferably Ember on your Charizard. Dragon Breath is there just to take advantage of the fact that if you see Dragonite, or if you start seeing like Kingdra leads, just because Kingdra, even though Kingdra is gonna draw, Kingdra is still a good safe switch in Ultra Premier Classic, but there's a lot of things out here that can threaten it and give it a hard time. So, but yes, with Trevenant against Charizard, Dragon Breath isn't bad in the 2-shield. You still threaten Trevenant very heavily just because if it doesn't shield, it's still going, as you see here, it still dies pretty dang hard. So then what happens here is you can send in Venusaur to farm this thing down, and then Venusaur and Swampert can hopefully close out your opponent in the back. But very powerful team regardless. Doesn't do that bad against Gallade, etc., even though it looks like it is, but even the Charizard against Gallade is not a bad thing. As you see, Gallade actually loses the 2-shield straight Dragon Claw, so your opponent will never get to it. Be careful of eating a close combat, because close combat can still do a decent amount of chunk damage, and then they can pivot out. But Swampert and Venusaur loves to munch on this meta with their charge moves, so yes, even against a Walrein, Venusaur's Frenzy Plant still hits a lot, pretty dang hard, so this team is still very, very good. Again, if you're on a budget, this team is really solid, so I plan on showcasing it on one of my battles, and hopefully this team, I still think it's going to do really well. In practice, it did really well, and multiple people have made Legend with this team in budget, so in budget you trust, unless you have a lot of other things in Ultra Premier Classic that you want to try out and use. And that's game. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and I hope you're looking forward to Ultra Premier Classic, because you have this one, then you have Master Premier Classic, and then you finally have Great League coming back in the form of Evolution Cup. So because not everyone, including this guy right here who really fell off on raiding, and what made me really salty about raids is I was actually a very hardcore raider back in the day. If XLs were allowed back in my day, I would have a lot of XL relevant Ultra League mods. But I don't, because of Niantic. And in profit wise, Remote raids and XLs were genius. They've made more money than I've ever made before, at the expense of our anxiety and our sanity. But yeah, I don't think I have any sanity left because of Pokemon Go. But yes, hopefully these teams do help you out. Ultra Premier Classic is a lot more friendly than Open Ultra League. And again, you're gonna have 1 week of it, then you're gonna have Master League and Master Premier Classic, and then you're gonna have you're gonna have a form of Great League coming back in the Evolution Cup. Do me a huge favor, please like, subscribe, and comment for the YouTube algorithm. I know I made this one the day before, but I've just been really busy with work, etc. I'm still getting settled in because I've moved to a new school, or 2 new schools actually. So I moved from one section to another, and now I'm getting integrated in those schools. So I'm busy with that, and after I come back, I work out, and then after that, I make YouTube content. And then, so yes, I'm very busy, but I do the best I can because without y'all, I have no motivation to do this. So also, I stream on Friday through Sunday, and I really do appreciate y'all's support. Good luck on your Go Battle League sets. I hope y'all are enjoying Season 12, and I will see y'all on the next video.